Well, good morning, and welcome to Wisdom of the Soul, brought to you by the Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. You'll find us more easily by Googling or searching Ageless Wisdom Mystery School than Wisdom of the Soul. This Zoom class, Wisdom of the Soul, is one of a number of things I do through uh, the name Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. It started out 14 years ago, believe it or not, as a podcast. We've got about, I think, 540 audio podcasts streaming. Help yourself. They're all free and, of course, ad-free as well, on a variety of topics, mostly centered on metaphysics and mysticism, and meditation and mindfulness, and I guess all words that begin with the letter M. I'm happy to be here. Today's my anniversary, and so Doreen and I are going to be celebrating. We've already begun. She made me a nice cup of tea. So I'm in a very good mood and ready to tackle what today is going to be really a challenging topic. This is really a powerful concept. And not that it's difficult, it's really pretty simple. But most of us are just completely oblivious to, and I'll say it this way, the reason we find it so difficult to feel as if we're in control in our lives, in control of anything. And there is a single fundamental mistake that we make that I'll describe for you here before we do the opening meditation. It's simply that we're so survival-oriented and driven by fear and foolishness, ignorance and unawareness, whatever we don't know. That's what fear is, a feeling of uncertainty and just not understanding things, that we obsess on the world around us rather than on ourselves. We seek to control the world, but self-control is something we rarely consider. We want to change the world. Rarely does it come to our attention that we could change ourselves as a way of changing the world, but maybe you don't even need to change the world if you work on yourself. We're aware of other people and situations, but have little interest in self-awareness or what that even means. We have these ancient platitudes from East, Middle East, and West about know thyself, but we're much more interested in figuring out other people and, again, controlling other people. So we're going to talk today about enlightened self-interest. This is not self-centered, selfish self-interest. This is a balanced, self-aware, enlightened self-interest. It's the order of things to recognize that we're not separate from anything. We're part of a unified field. You can't have light without shadow. You can't have a outside of you without there being an inside of you, just like you can't be a purchaser and buy things if there isn't someone to sell them. These are inextricable, yet we divide in our mind this from that, either or, all or nothing, and go about trying to cover the world with leather so we don't injure our feet, when it would be so much simpler just to wear sandals. So we're going to find control today and talk about how to be mindful of, well, first of all, when we get off track, when we slide into that rut of fixating on our apparent need to control or influence or persuade or seduce or threaten other people, to manage circumstances. Do you have any idea how much of our pain and suffering and frustration comes from the repeated attempt to control things outside of us? The belief that life happens to you. Here's a thought. Maybe nothing in life happens to you. Maybe life happens and you're taking it personally. Life happens and you got in the way. If it doesn't rain on your parade, it just rained. If you happen to be having a parade or a picnic at the time, or you were golfing or playing tennis or pickleball, and you're bummed out because it rained, it's not a bad rain. It's just rain. Stop judging it and roll with it. Resist nothing. These are some of the ideas that we're going to talk about today. It's major. I mean, it's simple, but the impact on your life when you learn to roll with it, stop judging, stop needing to change the world, and ignoring the opportunities that you have to change yourself, to grow yourself, not just random change, not just lateral change, but growthful, unfolding evolution, progressive change. Know thyself. Again, there's no grand wisdom, no great wisdom ever handed down. Know other people, figure them out so that you can control them and buy them off and threaten them and manipulate them, and then you'll be happy. No, it's know thyself. And yet, what's more frightening? What's more terrifying? That's one of the things that's exceptional about women and men like you who come to a class like this, is that you're willing to confront what you have yet to figure out about yourself. That's courageous. It really is. As Joseph Campbell called it, the hero's journey. Let's do an opening meditation, okay? So get comfortable in your chairs or wherever you happen to be, sitting on a sofa, cross-legged on a bed, meditation pillow. Get comfortable, assume the meditation position, which is to sit upright and erect, but not rigid. Think of yourself as being stacked, nicely balanced, like you would stack a set of blocks, so that your head sits on your neck and your shoulders. Let your shoulders go, let go in the shoulders. Balance your head. A little left and right, a little forward and back. Get a sense of balance. Straight above the hips. Feel your feet. If they're flat on the floor, don't cross your ankles unless you're sitting cross-legged. You're sitting in a chair, sofa, put your feet flat on the floor. Connect to the earth through the feet. If you're cross-legged on a pillow or sitting on a bed or something, feel your connection to the earth through the furniture. And as you close your eyes, become grounded. As I often say, and I begin every meditation this way, imagine if you were a tree, or for that matter, a flower or blade of grass, how it would feel to be deeply rooted into the earth. Look, you're a spiritual being, you're an energy being, you need to be grounded. So make that connection, feel that support. and feel open and receptive to a downward precipitation of some energy, some life force, some spirit or chi or ki, some kundalini or prana that precipitates down so that you feel sort of like a battery, this middle element that is both energy and mass, both spirit and matter, connected to both of those polarities. And imagine yourself being charged, recharged, renewed and restored and revitalized. Stand open and receptive to that letting go. While that's happening, take 3 or 4 nice, slow, deep breaths, inhaling ideally through the nose, exhaling through the nose or the mouth evenly. As you inhale, pull in strength and power. Hold for just a beat as you peak, and as you exhale, just at the same speed, just as slowly. Feel a letting go, and exhale beyond where you'd normally stop. And pause for a beat before you begin to inhale again. In this case, you are the breather. You're breathing deliberately and purposefully. Nice, big, slow, deep breaths. And after 3 or 4 or 5 of these, let go. Breathe normally. Do that now. Allow your body to breathe itself. You need not give your breath another thought, at least for a few moments, while you scan your body with your awareness. Start at the top of your head and slowly sweep down, or start at your feet, sweep up. But do a body scan. In whichever direction you begin, when you reach the other end of the body, sweep back. Do this a few times slowly, looking for areas of residual tension, anxiety, discomfort, irritation, dissatisfaction, any irritant or frustration. Let it go. Just let it go. Just put it down. Create and sense a letting go feeling. If this area of concern resists, and it feels like it's holding on to you, consider that that stuck feeling is actually you holding on to it. And take a single, deliberate, slow, deep breath. Become the breather for a moment. And after inhaling, send that breath as you exhale to that area and feel the letting go. It's about feeling safe. So silently and internally, tell yourself, I am safe and relaxed. And as I let go, I feel better and better. And this brings us to an awareness of the present moment. Bring your awareness from slowly sweeping the full length of your body to a point on the bottom of your nose. And find a place that's comfortable for you, whether the tip of the nose, that ridge line of cartilage between the nostrils, maybe just inside the rim of the nostrils, maybe high in the center of your upper lip. You find a spot that feels comfortable for you and allow your attention to gently rest, still, unmoving, unmovable, in that spot. And watch your body breathing itself, such that you are no longer the breather, but the witness of the body being breathed for you. The vast majority of your day, and obviously throughout the night when you sleep, you pay no attention whatsoever to your breathing, any more than you might concern yourself with whether your heart is beating or food is being digested or your immune system is working. You just let go of that and turn your attention to self-awareness. Be the watcher. But moreover, notice that there's nothing about your breathing that needs judgment. There's no reason to be concerned about whether this is a good breath or could be a better breath, or that breath wasn't really a very good breath. We never worry about whether we breathe adequately. It's absurd on the surface. You don't judge or label or concern yourself with how quickly or slowly I breathe, how deep or shallow I breathe. Whether my breath feels warm or cool, relative terms meaningless, just meaningless. And you allow it to happen without judgment. It's a practice of being, the awareness, free from judgment, no right or wrong, good or bad about it. No me or you, us or them. No this one or that one. And you also begin to notice that the back and forth of breathing, the in-breath and the out-breath, is a cycle. And today I'd like you to reflect on the cyclic nature of all things. All that exists is energy to the scientist, to the metaphysician, the mystic, or theologian. That energy is called spirit. But whether we call it spirit or energy, consider that it is a vibration. Everything vibrates. Sound, a single note on a piano, is a vibration. It has a crest and a trough, a peak and a valley, like your breath, a coming and a going. It is not a pure and constant tone. It wavers, on and off, forward and backward, up and down. And the rate at which, the frequency at which that vibrates determines the pitch. 440 times per second is the note A. An octave down is 220. An octave higher is 880. So too with light. Think of a color, red, blue, green. It too is a vibration, a much faster vibration. Millions and billions of times per second. So that instead of sound, we perceive it as light, various colors, discrete in that each has its own frequency, a vibration, a coming and a going. The light is actually flashing. And the frequency or rate at which it flashes on and off, forward and back, up and down, determines the color. All energy vibrates, and all mass, all matter, all material is energy. So everything is vibrational. Everything has a yin and a yang. Like your breath. Beyond the coming and going of your breath is an around and around and around, with no beginning and no end. No birth, no death. We vibrate in harmony and unison with all things. And life is easy and fun and joyous, unless and until we choose to resist. We become willful, our desire nature rises. And we want what we want because we want it, and we want it now. But it doesn't occur to us to watch ourselves, to look at our options and our choices, and to be at choice in how we respond to what appears to be happening to us, what seems to be done to us. We create a separation that does not exist. And we struggle with that delusion because it's not real. The separation out there and in here is not real. A sailor will say, I cannot control the wind, but I can trim my sails. Your ability to choose your response is your responsibility. Whenever you see or hear the word responsibility, think of it as response ability, the ability to choose what you do with what's done to you. In a cause-effect universe, there is stimulus and response, yet there is a point in between stimulus and response, a point of awareness, attitudes, character, a point of responsibility where we can choose the response and release our attempts in vain to control the stimulus. We release our obsession, our fixation on the outside coming at us, life happening to us. And celebrate the life that comes through us, from us, yes, but moreover, through us and out into the world. You are not moving through a life that happens to you. Life moves through you with a yin and a yang, an ebb and a flow, good days and bad days. You cannot have light without shadow. Cannot have warmer, warmest, hot without knowing cold. You can't sell without a purchaser. There is no separation, you see. And so this is enlightened self-interest. Know thyself, self-interest. But it's not selfish or self-centered because it doesn't spring from the delusion of separation. What makes it enlightened self-interest is you don't separate what benefits you from others. You understand there is no other. There is just this. The one, the all, the unified harmony, the flow of life. Be that. Feel the peace and the ease and the grace. And know that this is the source of happiness. Not mastering the disconnected outer world, not gathering up power over others. But power shared, free from the illusions, the delusions of separation. You cannot have an in-breath without an out-breath. They are not two different things. It's one cycle, one life, one mind, one heart, one thing. That is fearless peace, freedom, and joy to embrace all that is as part of one thing. One very beautiful, harmonious thing, life, to be effortlessly. Take a slow, deep breath or two. Breathe that in. Feel how the in-breath and the out-breath are part of one thing. Breathe yourself into the world with grace and ease. Drop the struggle. Release the heartache. Release the drama. Be grateful and compassionate. Self-compassion is a thing, just like self-love. But it has nothing to do with a separated, egoic self, a persona, or a sense of individuality. For while relatively real, in a world of form, it is ultimately an illusion. There's only one of us here. Be that. Bring this peace, this simple joy, happiness for no reason, with you effortlessly. It's nothing you need to carry. It's everywhere equally present. Wherever you go, it'll be there. Because it's your refined view, your expanded awareness, your higher consciousness. Bring this awareness with you as you form the intention to return to the wide awake state, coming back into the room, remembering where you are. Feel a gentle floating up or rising, as if drifting slowly and gently, quite elegantly, toward the wide awake state. And now, eyes open, wide awake. Open your eyes now, wide awake, back in the room, feeling fine, rested, refreshed. Maybe stretch a little bit. Maybe stomp your feet. Make sure your spirit's back in your body. Or you could even jump up and down and shout hallelujah. It's fine with me. Feeling better than before. Thank you. Welcome. Come on back. I hope you like these meditations. You know, I try to make everyone different such that for every class, you've got a different meditation. Now, they're edited out of the audio podcast. The Ageless Wisdom Mystery School podcast is this class without the meditation and without the Q&A. If you're not able to join us live on a given Sunday, the entire video with meditation and Q&A is on YouTube. And there are reasons for that. I don't want people driving a car and trying to listen to a meditation. It's just not a good idea. But you can get the whole thing on YouTube. Again, search Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. And would you click subscribe, whether it's a audio podcast or the video on YouTube? When you click subscribe, that's not just some ego hit for me. Well, it is that too. But moreover, it elevates where we occur in keyword searches when people start looking for this kind of programming. You know, the keywords, the meta tags that we use are ubiquitous. They're found everywhere. So, you know, peace of mind, somebody Googles, or meditation, or self-awareness, and there's 40,000 programs with that keyword search. Well, they're prioritized based on the number of subscribers. And we're getting close to 500 subscribers. I have 430 or so on YouTube. And we have about 40,000 subscribers to the audio podcast because it's been around, as they say, for 13 or 14 years with hundreds and hundreds of programs. But when we get to 500 subscribers on YouTube, then YouTube will begin to push it out, promote it in those suggested videos on the right side of your screen when you go to YouTube. Like, if you like this, maybe you'll like this. So I appreciate it. And leave a review, leave a comment. And they always say subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. Same thing with the audio podcast. If you can leave a little review, Apple Podcasts does reviews. That's still the biggest podcast platform. Spotify is right up there with Apple. I think about 80% of podcast listens come through one or the other of those, Apple or Spotify. But there's also a player called Podchaser that encourages ratings and reviews. Really helps out. Really helps out. Same with my book. If you've enjoyed my book, Fearless Intelligence, and have yet to leave a review, man, it doesn't, just 3 sentences, you know, an honest, sincere review of the book. That really drives our rating in keyword searches and helps other people find it. So not to dwell on that, but often doesn't occur to people that on our end as programmers, as content creators, we really have to be aware of that kind of marketing nonsense. I hate having to care about it. I'm not really interested in it, but it's got to be mentioned. It's got to be done. So thanks very much for that. So in the preface to the meditation and during the meditation, in the newsletter announcing the topic for this week, we're talking about searching for and finding control in our lives. And when I say it's really quite simple, stop looking outside to control the world. It's where our eyes go. It's where our senses are focused. Because our senses were primarily developed as a survival mechanism, a way of finding food and avoiding danger. That's what the senses are for. You do have, for every physical sense and sensation, a corresponding inner sense. We just don't use them, at least not very often. And when we do, we're often scared off. There's a philosopher, Blaise Pascal, who said the core of all human problems lies in the inability of an individual to sit quietly in a room alone with their thoughts and feelings. That's a paraphrase, but that's basically, you want to know why you're troubled? Why are you depressed? Because you're thinking depressing thoughts and generating feelings of melancholy and depression and sadness that tend to foster more depressing thoughts. We worry. Depression is anxiety, in case you hadn't noticed. I should be quick to add that technically there are other types of depression. Depression can be a symptom of a medical issue. I think I read once thyroid issues can lead to one of the symptoms of some hypo or hyperthyroidism can be a feeling of depression. You see this senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, he had a stroke and it put him in deep depression. And you say, well, he survived the stroke and he became a U.S. senator. What's he got to be depressed about? Well, it's not psychological so much as physiological. Again, that one more example of where there may appear to be a separation, an emotional feeling in your body versus a physical feeling in your body, but there's no separation. Repressed emotions can manifest as physical illness. My God, especially back pain, neck, shoulder, back. So much of that is psychosomatic. And there's some indication that heart disease, diabetes, cancer have personality profiles. It's not the sole factor. It's a contributing factor. Dis-ease doesn't mean that I'm not saying there's no such thing as bacteria and viruses and genetic predispositions. I'm just saying awareness, consciousness, your thought patterns, your belief systems, they weaken the immune system. And so we call illness generically dis-ease, suggesting that good health, mental, emotional, and physical, spiritual too, for that matter, good health comes from being at ease. Not all stress is distress. There is good stress. It's called eustress, EU stress, good stress, psyching up, preparing for the performance. It's exciting. Good stress is exciting. Oh boy. But after a certain point, once you go past the top of that bell curve and you keep adding stress, now it becomes distressful. You go down the right side of that slope. Distress, dis-ease. But this whole idea that life happens to you begins, I think, with the appearance of our emotions having been done to us. That we're a victim of our emotions. We're less likely to feel like we're a victim of our thinking. But to be a victim of your emotions, and of course, in a physical sense, to be a victim if somebody threatens you, or doesn't pay you, rip you off, stiffs you, or otherwise threatens you, or is just nasty and mean and insulting. Again, there's no separation here either between the mental, emotional, the physical, the world around you, and the spiritual, which embraces it all. But we create the subject-object split as if life is being done to us. And I'm over here just ducking and dodging and poor, pitiful me. And all I can do is struggle and fight back. Fight back against what? A video game of your own imagination? First-person shooter game? You've made your life into a first-person shooter game? Well, it can be exciting, but mostly it's just painful. Life happens. It doesn't happen to you. Look, I have to be aware of this too. I'm not like some guru that is above all of this and never feels like I've been victimized. I assure you, there are many, Astorine, there are many times in my life where I play poor, pitiful me, at least for a few minutes before I recover and say, relax, Michael, take a breath. That's the old model. Things will work out. Do what you need to do and let it go. Worrying is like a rocking chair. It has the appearance that you're getting something done, but you can rock all day, you stand up, you're still in the same place. You burned some calories, but you didn't get anywhere. Why do you worry? And how much of that sadness and depression is a part of the worry process? Again, both sides. Worry creates depression, depression creates worry. So again, there is such a thing as also not just depression from certain medical conditions. There's also a genetic predisposition. Sometimes you inherit the tendency to be easily depressed physiologically. But having said that, the vast majority of depression in the world is anxiety. Ask yourself, how long does it last? If it lasts more than a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, that's a typical period of depression. Feeling blue, feeling funky, melancholy, feeling sorry for yourself. There's something addictive about it. There's an odd comfort in the discomfort. I guess it's just familiarity. It's not that discomfort is comfortable. It's not that you enjoy being depressed. It's just so familiar. Oh, my friend, depression. Oh, my friend, pain. This is my story. Who can I tell my story to about how difficult my life is? and how these people are treating me so unfairly. There's no responsibility in that, and everybody does it. Yeah, me too. The secret is how quickly can we recover? How quickly? By developing through deep relaxation and study and mindfulness and expanded awareness that allows us to more quickly recognize what we're doing to ourselves. Anytime we try to find control out there, to influence or persuade, to threaten, to bully, to bully other people. You don't like to be bullied, why bully? Well, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You got to stand up for yourself. Here's one I like. I'm not going to let them get away with that. Really, you're not? Who puts you in charge of making sure somebody doesn't, quote, get away with it? Really? Judge, jury, prosecutor? Let them get. If you understand karma, nobody ever got away with anything. A very just universe. It's just so much of it is, it's like an iceberg. So much of it is submerged. You may think that iceberg that you see on the horizon is huge, but 90% of it is submerged. So it is with karma and life in general. You have to develop your awareness to see below the surface, understand the connection. Leave it to the universe. Leave it to the fates. Leave it to providence. Leave it to God. You're a religious person. It'll work out. They'll figure it out sooner or later. Maybe not in this lifetime, but why make that your mission in life, to go around fixing other people? What do we need from other people, and why do we need anything from other people? I mean, I don't want to be ridiculous about this. There is commerce. We're not all growing our own food. We have supermarkets. I'm not generating my own electricity, thank God. I don't have to source the natural gas, fortunately. I don't have to build a car on my own. So I need some income to pay the utilities, to buy the car, to pay for the insurance, which is required by law, to pay the taxes on the land upon which you live. So there is that relationship that we have with other people. Indeed, I'm arguing that we're all connected. There's only one thing at work here. I'm talking about the inappropriate need to manage or control other people. And we find it so exhausting and so difficult and so frustrating. And we wear ourselves down and depress ourselves because of our inability to do that. Well, what if we stop doing that? Stop seeing life as something that happens to you, that's done to you. And a good place to begin is to recognize that your emotional feelings are not done to you. Your life is not about the stimulus, it's about the response. Again, your ability to make a choice is your responsibility. In his classic book, Man's Search, I just drew a blank. Yeah, it's Man's Search for Freedom by Viktor Frankl. He was a German psychiatrist who...
For meaning.
Oh, you're right. Man's Search for Meaning. Thank you. Viktor Frankl. Victor with a K, odd spelling. Frankl is an odd spelling too. A German psychiatrist who because he was a Jew, ended up in a concentration camp in Germany in the World War II Hitler era. And it's a wonderful book. He talks about having lost everything except his freedom to choose. And then he pondered that for a while. And in the book, there's a famous line, really a quotable quote, that between stimulus and response, there is a space. Now, for most of us, it only lasts for an instant. It's a very constricted, very tiny little space between what happens to us, the stimulus, and the response, which is usually a reaction, and often quite reflexive, that is, without thought, without consideration. But what he's saying is, in that space, if we open it up, that space between stimulus and response, that we can be at choice. And, excuse me, and the thread that runs through all of those choices, all of those options, is shifting from I need to control the stimulus to I could choose not only my response, but my perspective, my attitudes, my beliefs. I can expand my awareness and have more choices, more responses to choose from, and then initiate a response that is for the greater good of all concerned, including me, of course. I'm part of the greater good of all concerned. It's not a sacrifice to care about your impact on other people. You don't give up any self-interest to work for the greater good. But it's like a 180. It's like, stop trying to control what's happening to you. You can't control the weather, but you can look out the window and say, it looks a little cloudy. Maybe I'll take an umbrella and a sweater with me today. That's the secret. Could it really be that simple? And now look at every area in your life where you suffer. I want to go to the Q&A here. So be thinking about a question you can put in the chat box, address it to Hannah this morning. A comment or a question, just succinctly make a reference to it in chat, and she'll call on you in a few minutes. And I'll either answer that or give you an opportunity to unmute, and we'll have a little discussion about it, expand on it a little bit. This is just so huge. Look at all the areas in your life where you're depressed, where you're frustrated, where you tend to get angry, where other people hurt you. Everything in your life that is not, oh boy, golly gee, far out, awesome, wonderful, cool, groovy. Yes, I'll say groovy. And look at how you either created it or contributed to it. If you can't take full responsibility for creating your life, then begin by looking at your contribution to it and the extent to which it comes from your need to control other people and the world around you, events and circumstances, situations, as well as relationships. Stop it. This is discussed at length in Buddhism in the Four Noble Truths, only it's called the desire nature. So Buddha taught that all of the suffering comes from desiring things to be other than they are. And I'm saying, yeah, another way of looking at that is all of your suffering comes from trying to control what you cannot control. Look, if it's a stimulus, first of all, it's already happened to you. So if it's already happened, how much control are you going to have? Well, maybe I could prevent it from happening again. Okay. But it's like the law and order people on the right who always want more police to stop crime. How do police stop crime? You don't call them. They don't even get involved until the crime's already been committed. Well, we need to put more people in jail. Are you kidding? There's 195 nations in the world. We are 5% of the world. And of all those nations, we put more of our people in prison per capita than any other nation in the world. We've already locked everybody up, and still there's crime. And here, not to get too far afield, but here's another dirty little secret you'll never hear on the news. 85% of violent crime is between people who know each other. The stuff you hear about on the news is cherry-picked from the 15% that happens between strangers, people with no relationship to each other, right? The guy that shot the cheerleaders because they started to get into his car. I'm sure those were very dangerous-looking cheerleaders. Or the woman who was killed for going up the wrong driveway, or the little girl that was shot because her basketball rolled into the guy's yard. There's must have been a very dangerous 6-year-old. You never know what they'll do with those basketballs. And that's in the last week. You say, oh my God, I better get a gun. Everybody's got guns. Everybody's shooting. Maybe I should too. No, man, that's the problem with broadcast news and, well, print news for that matter, and the internet. It's not an accurate picture or cross-section, and it makes you feel like a victim of a life that you have no control over. And so again, we obsess even more on the stimulus, what's happening to me, what's done to me, and the people that are doing it who need to be locked up or self-deport, whatever. My country, love it or leave it. No, it's mostly men shooting their wives, women shooting their husbands, kids getting a hold of daddy's gun and blowing away their baby brother. The 6-year-old that took a gun to school a couple of weeks ago. Check it out. You don't have to believe me. 85% of crime is domestic. Of violent crime is domestic. If somebody's going to, that's true for property crime too. If somebody's going to steal something, it'll usually be from someone they know. Someone broke in your house while you were away. How'd they know you were away? Right. Yeah, it might have been a stranger, but odds are they know you. It's someone you know who stole your stuff, who broke in, who stole your car, broke into your house, whatever. I'm not going to tell you that. They want you to be afraid. They want you to feel like a victim. They want to counsel fear. They want to promote fear. It keeps you watching the telly. If you're afraid to go outside, what are you going to do? Watch more TV. If you and one more thing before I go to the Q&A. Are we paying attention to the percentage of commercials on these cable news channels that are strictly pharmaceutical in nature? Just one after another, after another. It used to be this occasional drug spot. Now it's just one after another, after another, after another. And the exception is a commercial for something that's not pharmaceutical in nature. And there's only one other nation in the world that does that. This is such a peculiar country. Only 2 nations in the world allow pharmaceuticals to advertise prescription drugs so that you go bully your doctor. Give me more drugs. Again, searching for a solution outside. Looking for control outside. Stop it. Meditation, mindfulness, study will expand your awareness. You'll pick up sooner. Again, we all get dragged into it. Recently, I've had several occasions, 1, 2, 3, and things come in bunches, right? The crests and the troughs, the peaks and the valleys. I had a whole bunch of things happen to me all at once a couple of weeks ago that felt like they were being done to me. We get sucked into it. The secret is, how quickly can I recover and take ownership and responsibility of having created it, or at the very least contributed to it, and then recognizing the antidote is in how I choose to respond to it. Fix yourself, know yourself, control yourself, and recognize separation is an illusion. But you have to recognize that from the inside out, not the outside in. I hope this is clear to you, or becoming clear. You know, you can always listen to it again. I always talk about either you come here live or you listen to the podcast or the YouTube. You could do both. I often do. I can learn from listening to tapes of me I made 30 and 40 years ago. And that always blows my mind, how much I can learn from something I said 3 or 4 decades ago. It's because I didn't fully appreciate, when I said it, all of the implications and ramifications. I'm a different person now. So I have new insight, even though it was me 30 years ago. That never ceases to amaze me. I think it's so cool. I listen to Alan Watts over and over and over again. I hear a program I've heard so many times, and I always learn something new. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that far out? Be the learner. Okay? So, and I hope all of this, I hope you see this also in the context of the breath watching, because that exercise, often called insight meditation or vipassana, of being the witness of the breathing, watching your body breathe, also brings up the idea that the in-breath and the out-breath are one thing also. There is no separation ultimately, but it's like a drop in a pool of water. The ripples radiate out, right? They only come back if they hit a wall and bounce back, but the tendency of energy is to radiate out. So you discover that harmony and that unity by first knowing yourself, managing yourself, taking ownership and responsibility, and then empathizing and developing your interpersonal relationships and the leadership skills that allow you to manage and influence other people with grace and elegance. You see? Self-development, self-improvement, even though the self is an illusion, you've got to develop your sense of self before you can transcend that self. And we'll leave it at that for this week. Let's go to the Q&A. And Hannah, who have we got?
Well, we don't have anybody yet.
Excuse me for interrupting. I see there was just a hand up, and Jeff texted me a question because he couldn't get through to you. So however you want to handle that. I do see one.
Well, this month I have to leave at 12:15, which is in 2 minutes. So why don't you just go ahead and take it on, Melinda?
Okay,
Thank
sounds good.
Thank
Jeff,
you, Hannah. Thanks for being here.
Jeff said, I've experienced a good amount of people who have tried to control me in one form or another. Would you go deeper into the psychology of why they do this, beyond feeling a fake sense of safety? What do they really get out of controlling others? That's Jeff.
Only frustration, but they do it because we've been trained to do it. We're consumers, after all. Everything about our education and enculturation is to see ourselves as either a subject or an object in the subject-object split. Even our sentence structures, the subject of the sentence is separated from the object of the sentence through a verb, which is the action that the subject takes on the object. The idea of seeing yourself in the other is too abstract for the majority of people. The idea that if somebody tries to hurt you, control you, manipulate you, insults you, that you can see yourself in them, go to compassion for their suffering, understand the dance. I mean, why do people who love each other hurt each other so deeply by saying the nastiest things that they would never say to another person? Why do we say the nastiest things we've ever said to the people we love the most? Let me let you think about that for a second. Why would you say the most hurtful things to the people you love the most? And why do you want to hurt them? Because you believe they hurt you, and you need them to hurt or to know how the hurt feels. Really? Why? Because our eyes look out, our ears listen. All of our senses and sensations are about perceiving the world that we might survive. But as I said in the class, there are inner correspondents to those that imagination gives us access to. And we can see ourselves in others and unity in all things. You can learn so much about yourself if you put your mind and open your heart to it about the bad behavior of other people. You know, it takes one to know one is a pretty high metaphysical principle, even though it's an age-old meme. Or kids on the playground, I know you are, what am I? Neener, neener, neener. Think about that. I know you are, what am I? I know you are, what am I? Little kids say that. Deep in some level, we understand the interplay. I'm not sure if you were here last week, but we talked about this in arguing the way your defense, my defense in an argument, as well-intentioned as it may be, as elegant as it may be, in my ability to choose just the right words and attitude and everything, still, nevertheless, is likely to be seen by the person I'm arguing with as offensive. My defense is perceived by my opponent, my opposition, as actually offensive. No, I'm defending myself. They see it as an attack. So they defend themselves, which you see as an attack. You're both defending yourselves from attacks that don't exist. Neither is really being offensive. They're just defending themselves. How often do people who argue stop and say, wait a minute, maybe I took that wrong. What was your intention? What did you mean to say? Are you kidding? A question in the middle of an argument? Not much self-awareness for that, not much room for that. We're too frightened, which shatters awareness and destroys intelligence. You never had a great idea in the middle of an argument. Oh my God, you know what I just realized? That happens in the bathtub, or when you take the dog for a walk, or when you sit and contemplate quietly. You don't get insight in the middle of a hostile argument. So everybody's going to try to control you because we're trying to control everybody else. And it goes from arguing with people you barely know, road rage. There's a great example. People would get guns and shoot each other for the way they behave in traffic. Funny that doesn't happen in the supermarket. If somebody cuts you off, those aisles are pretty narrow in the supermarket. Or somebody stands there for 5 minutes trying to decide just which jar of pickles they really want, completely oblivious to the fact that traffic is backing up in the supermarket aisle. But for some reason, I guess the car is such a big, imposing obstacle to intimacy that we're not as patient, we're not as tolerant, and more likely to scream at somebody and just go off the rails and bit flip. It's just this, all born of this illusion of separation, and it starts at birth. It's a spiritual separation anxiety. What if all of your fear, what if all of your pain, what if all of your suffering was born of the illusion that you are separate, that you are not that, and that is not you? That we're all a bunch of billiard balls crashing into each other on a pool table. And we have to struggle to get along. I remember when I first started in journalism, it was weeks in the Vietnam peace talks arguing about the size of the table. I couldn't believe it. I was like 21 years old, just starting a career in broadcast journalism. And every day I had to announce, well, they're still arguing about the size of the table. Meanwhile, people are getting machine gunned and napalmed and bombs dropped on cities and medals and award being pinned on their chest for shooting at strangers for some reason that nobody really understood. And when it was all over, Robert McNamara said, the defense secretary through all of that said, yeah, it was a mistake. It's always a mistake, and it's ultimately fundamental mistake is the illusion of separation. It just keeps coming back to that. So find the harmony, find the unity. Dance together. Don't fight, dance. Waltz through life. As we discussed last week, ask questions instead of setting people straight and telling them the way it is, or defending yourself from others who are doing that same thing. Ask questions. Really? Why do you feel that way? There's a great question. And then see if you have the ability to actually sit there, uncomfortable though it may be, and listen to them. They might have a hard time. Be patient. They weren't expecting that. Really? Why do you feel that way? That's more fundamental than why do you think that? Or why do you believe that? They have to go into their feelings, which is real unfamiliar territory. I did talk shows for years based on this, and very few people ever picked up the subtlety. We would use current events, news items, as a pretext for people calling my talk show. And they would tell me what they thought about whatever, war and peace, capital punishment, abortion, welfare, whatever. And then I'd say, really, well, maybe I'd say, why do you think that's true? Or what's your evidence for it? But pretty quickly I'd move to, why do you feel that way? And very rarely did anybody pick up on that. But suddenly we're talking about unfamiliar territory. And because they would be frustrated and not be familiar with their feelings or the real motives behind their thinking, what really drove them, they would get frustrated, and then I would say, well, it sounds like you're getting a little frustrated, or maybe you sound a little defensive or a little angry. And they would shout back, I am not angry, and threaten me. Right? But of course, the audience was on the edge of their seats because they're watching somebody who's emotionally naked, dancing, like a puppet on a string. It's hard not to take advantage. I really tried not to take advantage of it, but it was a show, after all.
We got 2 more, Michael.
Yeah, I guess that's my best answer. The point I want to make is this illusion of separation. This is non-duality. I haven't used that term a lot in this class, non-duality. But maybe we'll talk more about the unity of all things. It is a universe. Work on that perspective. Thanks, Melinda. What else? Who else?
I think Murmur has a comment. Did you have a hand up? Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
Yes.
actually, my name is Meredith. I have to change the name on my my screen. Michael, I just wanted to thank you for your words of enlightenment. The past 4 years, I have been listening to your podcasts, and I've read your book, and your information is invaluable. Talking about choices and making decisions, it occurs to me often that when I have, perhaps I have an altercation with someone and they're angry, I am able to understand that often they're coming from a place of hurt. And I am able to understand that and respond appropriately. But what will happen with me later on, and I know this developed at a young age, I had an extreme codependent relationship with my mother and a father who was not in the picture at all. So I developed this people-pleasing sort of thing. And so when I get in an altercation with somebody and they are unkind or they lash out at me, I'm able to respond appropriately. But internally, I can't get off the hamster wheel of trying to fix how they feel about me. And what that does, it affects a lot of decisions I've made in my life coming from a place of feeling less than, instead of being able to have the ability to be okay with them not agreeing with me or being okay with them not liking me. So I'm able to deal with the external side of that, but not the internal side of it.
My first response, and I hope this doesn't sound too critical or nitpicky, but be careful, Meredith, of saying I can't. Maybe I misunderstood you, but I'm pretty sure you said you can't get off the hamster wheel.
I have difficulty.
Yeah, I haven't been able to. That leaves room for growth. Can't sort of implies I never will be able to. Your unconscious is listening. It's my only point. So let's get that little nitpicky trivial thing out of the way. It's a wonderful, wonderful question. We all are somewhat codependent because of this harmony, this unity, this wholeness, and it leads to a blurring of the line, as it should, between us and them. So we want to fix everything. We want everything to be nice. And as you have suggested here, even if you're able to heal the divide with them, Am I to understand your question is about the nagging, lingering negativity that you feel about the way you handled it? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, it's not about the way I handled it. It's about the fact that because this person was angry with me, and I understand they were coming from a place of hurt, and I have compassion for them because they don't understand it. I am still in my mind wanting to fix the way they may feel about me.
Oh,
Whether or
okay.
not I want to continue a relationship with them or they're in my life, I have difficulty being okay with the fact that they may not think I'm great or I'm okay.
Yeah. Well, you've already identified it as codependence.
Yes.
So you know it's something that you need to work on. It's hard to criticize yourself, ourselves, or others for being too loving, for caring too much. I mean, right? So it's a gentle, balanced walk we have to do. But what comes to my mind as I listen to you is patience and trust, planting seeds. If I want tomatoes and I got a packet of seeds, or I want strawberries and I've got some seeds or maybe sets, seeds is a better example, and I sprinkle the seeds, I know how to cultivate the ground. I know the strawberries, for example, like well-drained soil, so I may add a little sand. I know tomatoes are heavy nitrogen feeders, so I may add a soil amendment. I know I need to cultivate to pull the weeds out. But, excuse me, having said that, the magic of the seed developing, sprouting, growing into a small plant that continues to grow and eventually flower, and if fertilized, pollinated, bear fruit that's full of seeds to repeat the process, that's pretty much out of my hands. I don't know very much about how that happens. I don't know how an acorn figures out how to be an oak tree. I know if I step on the acorn and throw a bucket of water on it, it's got a pretty good chance. If I just leave it alone, I can't control that. I got to let it go, turn it over, so to speak. And if it were me feeling what I understand to be your expression of wanting to really fix it completely and totally and feel the peace of putting it all at rest, I would pull on patience and trust and know that you planted a seed, that your sincerity will be perceived. Your openness and genuine honesty and sincerity is enough to carry it through, and let go with a sense of trust. Trust is a real important word. I mentioned last week that loving relationships, as wonderful as they are not as stable as a relationship built on three legs, the triangle, the three-legged stool, the tripod. It's love and respect and trust. And mutual respect and mutual trust and mutual love, that triangle is very stable. You need all three of those legs. And if you have that in a relationship, I mean, just your body language, a smile, well, I understand how you feel. I hope you hear what I'm saying and understand my intention. And, just that caring nature. What is not said, what is not spoken, but carried in your demeanor and your attitude and whatever they know of you as a person. You just sort of have to trust and have faith in that, don't you think?
Mhm. Well, for me, it's this need to be accepted, and when I am not, not everyone likes us. We don't like everyone. That's just the way it is.
If you
Um,
were Let me just say, we're running over, so let me just say, if you were a private client of mine and you brought this to me in one-on-one work,
Yep.
we would go to inner child work.
And I do that. I do that.
Good. Keep doing that.
Okay.
Work with yourself at all ages, not just the 16-year-old and the 12-year-old and the 8-year-old. Go to the 4-year-old. Go to the baby in the crib in your imagination.
Okay.
Let your intuition express, like the rings of a tree. Every tree that tree has ever been is within it, and everyone you've ever been is still within you. So that desire that you're talking about may come more from the inner child than from the adult. Go, as the woman you've become, go back and rescue that child.
Thank you.
All right?
Michael, I'd like to read Ignacio's comment really quickly. We don't have time for much. Could it be that control over one's emotions is a great barometer to success in life? That was pretty wonderful.
Oh, no question about it. And even controlling your emotions is a tricky word, because control sort of implies holding on to or manipulating or managing in a hands-on way. And in fact, controlling your emotions is more about letting go and allowing the emotion to express itself, to unmask itself. But thoughts consider this is not exclusively true. There's overlap, obviously, sort of an 80-20 thing. Thoughts are, for the most part, objective in nature and about the world. Emotions, by and large, not exclusively, are a subjective intelligence designed essentially to reveal yourself to you and the inner world. That's why emotions are the portal to spirituality and your connection to all things. So even the word control, which I set up, that's today's class, the search for control, finding control. But controlling emotions is managing emotions. We see that all the time. We need to. But with the addendum that it is ultimately a letting go thing, to allow ourselves to unfold, the self-awareness to unfold as we let go, or maybe wade into, move directly into the feeling, scary or unfamiliar though it may be. Yeah, it's good. That's good stuff. Okay, shall we wrap it up?
Yep.
All righty. Hope you liked it today. Again, basically pretty simple, but a lot of information because this just touches everything. All right. There's only one of us here, one universe, one mind, one heart. We're facets on a magnificent diamond, cut this way to reveal the infinite beauty. The multiplicity reveals the beauty and the unity of the one thing, of the one gemstone. The diamond is most beautiful when it has many faces. It's not it's not a you or me world. Work to make it a you and me world. And join us next week. We'll see what intuition dictates next week. I'm open to your suggestions too. You can just hit reply on the newsletter and write to me anytime you want. And love to hear some suggestions for topics. I usually just, in meditation midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, see what comes up. So with that, let me thank you very much. Mahalo, aloha, and namaste, salam. Please unmute and say goodbye and hello and thank you to
Thank
your
you.
friends.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
Till
that.
next week.
Have a lovely week, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot,
Happy
Michael.
St.
Happy
George's
anniversary.
Day, everyone.
Cheers.
Hi, thank you. Thank you.